Hey, it's me, Jennifer, your host and naturalist guide to the plants and animals of the Midwest. Among the many bird species, the bobolink makes one of the longest migrations known to any songbirds. And Sarah Hewitt, with the Audubon Society, is here today to introduce us to this black, yellow, and white bird. Sarah is a senior conservation manager with Audubon Upper Mississippi River, a regional office of the National Audubon Society, leading bird conservation in Minnesota, Iowa, and Missouri. She has been with the Audubon for over 10 years and prioritizes growing conservation on private and public working lands to support declining bird populations. She has her Master's of Natural Resource Management from North Dakota State University and her Bachelor's of Liberal Arts from the University of Minnesota-Morris. In 2025, Sarah also earned her Minnesota Master Naturalist certification, recognizing her as an official nature nerd. Sarah, welcome to our wild backyard. I'm excited to have you here to talk about the bobolink. If someone doesn't know what the species looks like, describe it in a minute or less.
Sure. Yes, it's a blackbird that's about the size of a robin, about 6 to 8 inches tall. And what's unique about it is that its belly is black and its back is white. You know, usually for songbirds, it's kind of opposite, right? Like you see kind of the white belly, but this one is described as having kind of a backwards tuxedo look. It's a little fancy. And then it has this like very distinct buff, kind of like a yellow color back of its head. So like a kind of a yellow mullet, you could say.
Okay.
With the backwards tuxedo look. So very distinctive. And oftentimes you will see them perched up on tall grass. That's kind of where they like to hang out, surveying. They eat a lot of the seeds from there. And then, like I mentioned, they have this very nice, pleasant, bubbling, tinkling song that they will sing out on the prairie. It's pretty rare that you'll find them in town. Definitely more in the tall grass prairie.
Your song almost sounds extraterrestrial, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I was listening to some before when I was preparing for this, and I was like, wait, it sounds like the aliens are going to come and get us. But no, it's the bird.
Yes. That's another part of why I love them, because you'll be out on the prairie early spring, and it's one of those birds, when you hear it, you're like, oh, that's a bobolink. That's pretty obvious. But then it's also very curious. Like when you're out in the field, it will follow you from point to point. And so to me, it's just a very charismatic species that represents grasslands well and is, fun to watch as well.
They're easy to misidentify. Like, are they mistaken for another type of bird?
Yeah. If you're not aware of the distinctive markings and stuff like that, they are related to blackbirds. And so I imagine they're pretty easy to get confused with like the red-winged blackbird or the yellow-headed blackbird as well. But then once you key in on like, that white back and the little yellow hat, yeah, they could be easy to identify.
So we have the bobolinks here in the Midwest, but they aren't here year-round as they're migratory birds. What time of the year can we see the bobolinks here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they start moving in like early May. The males will come in first to set up their territories, and they are actually some of the last songbirds in the prairie to come over. And that's because their migratory journey is one of the longest in the world for a songbird.
Nice.
Yes. So let's see, their round trip is about 12,500 miles, if you can believe that, because they are migrating from South America, and they have to cross over the Gulf. And so they have quite the journey. And so, yes, they come a little bit early in May, and then they the males set up their territories, and then they stay around until like late July, early August. So during that time, as they're migrating south, like they are trying to fuel up as much as possible, right? Because that is quite the epic journey.
Long journey.
And so they're often nicknamed the rice bird on their journey. and maybe are considered a bit of like an agricultural pest in the South because of that. But it's all very necessary because they need to cover the Gulf to get to their wintering grounds. And then, by like April, the next spring, they're moving north to their breeding grounds.
Sure, sure. And so they breed and have their chicks here in the Midwest. And
Right.
then those baby chicks, are they flying down south too?
They are,
Oh
yes.
my goodness.
So it takes about like 12 days for the babies to hatch. And it's usually, I think, in like early June about that they're
Okay.
starting to come out. So they have a month or so, which is crazy, right? Like to be maturing in that short of a time and ready to migrate. So impressive.
That is
And yeah,
just
so
insane. Are
it
they,
is.
they're not full size within a month, are they?
Yeah,
They
yep.
are?
I believe, yeah, a month and a half. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's very
That's
impressive.
quite the growth spurt.
Yeah. And that's so one thing to know, I know that I mentioned that they were kind of considered like agricultural pests up north, but they have really great benefits to the ecosystem up here because during that rapid growth period, they're eating like a ton of protein packed insects that their parents are bringing to them. And oftentimes those are agricultural pests.
Nice.
That they can help essentially be biocontrol agents for.
So how would a bobolink spend their day? What are they doing?
Yeah, a lot of eating, right?
Okay.
So a lot of the time they are out foraging for grains, like I said, rice, in those parts of the world, but a lot of grains, grass tops, or grass seed heads, I mean. And then as they are getting ready to breed, and then also in the process of feeding their young, they're eating a lot of insects as well. Um, so just some examples here like insect larvae. And they'll also do like adult insects as well, and then a lot of arachnids like spiders. So that you could see them foraging kind of at the top of the to get the seed heads, but then also at the bottom of the plant foraging for those protein packed insects.
Okay. So very
So
diverse diet there.
yes, very
Yes.
diverse, and it just like depends on what part of their life cycle they're essentially in. So a lot of their time, of course, eating, but then say if you were a male bobolink and you're trying to mate as well, you're doing a lot of singing to be setting your territory. Then they also do a flight display to attract and woo the ladies. Uh,
Tell me more
and
about that.
yeah, so the flight is apparently, right, according to ornithologists who have studied them a ton, is to display like their health, right? And the longer that a male can fly around, he's going to be more attractive to the female. Yes. So that's what he's spending his day doing. They can actually, so they are considered polygynous, meaning that they mate with more than one female at a time. I think typically they do like have four mates, um, which is very interesting. And what I think is really interesting, they're also considered polyandrous, meaning that the clutch of eggs could be fathered or sired by multiple males.
Okay. And are the fathers involved after the chicks hatch?
Yes, surprisingly, they are.
Okay.
So they will oftentimes stick with their primary female. So, like the first female that they mated with, they
Okay.
will want, like, she's the sole uh, caregiver of like sitting on the eggs until they hatch. And then he actually will come back and help her take care of the offspring. Um, and sometimes the female can have another helper, could be a male, could be a female for different reasons. I thought that was really interesting too, that she, kind of builds a village of a sort to help out with all these. I think they have like, what is it, like 3 to 7 eggs that that could hatch. So a
Okay.
lot to take care of.
Yeah, and if they gotta grow in what, 12 weeks you said?
Yeah, yeah, yep.
Before they
12
fly?
weeks or
Yeah.
so. Yep.
And if I remember right, their nests are on the ground?
They are, yes. And the female builds that nest on the ground in like 1 to 2 days when she's ready to lay her eggs. And it is honestly like a very intricate process as well. So like it starts off where she's kind of like plucking the vegetation out because she wants a bare ground bottom for the nest as kind of a foundation. And then she spends time just weaving grasses and forbs, so like wildflowers, weaving and weaving a nest that's about 4 inches across and about 2 inches tall. And then, like, to get very cushioned bottom for those delicate eggs, then she uses like finer grasses and finer like sedge species to kind of make that a pillow, if you will, for the eggs to sit on.
Who is the bobolink's arch nemesis? Who are they on alert for?
Yeah, that's such a fun question. So because they are in the prairie, and historically, right, there were bison on the prairie, there are other species that kind of evolved to coexist with the bison. And one of those in particular, who is an arch nemesis for a lot of songbirds, is the cowbird, the brown-headed cowbird.
Oh, yeah.
And true to their name, they followed ungulates. So previously, it was historically bison. Today, they follow cows around, um, eating the bugs and things like that they bring to the landscape. And because they are so nomadic, they lay their eggs in other songbirds' nests. And they say, all right, thanks, see ya. Take care of my baby for me. And they fly off with the cattle or the bison. And so oftentimes songbirds are left raising cowbird chicks. Um, and so this is called nest parasitism. And bobolinks are aware that this happens. And so they will, they like have a natural beef with cowbirds, and they will get kind of territorial with them to ward them away from their nests. Yeah. And then, then it's just the typical predators like larger raptors, hawks, snakes, raccoons, things like that.
Been speaking a little bit about the life cycle. We've covered like how many eggs they lay and when they leave the nest, but how long does a bobolink live? Like how many times how are they going to migrate to South America and back here to the Midwest?
It's astonishing. So they live about 4 to 6 years.
Okay.
And they're ready to breed within their first year of life. So their first journey back after they're born, they're ready to breed. So they could have, and they typically have one brood in the summer. So they could have, 5, 6 maybe broods in their lifetime. And that means then they have to make that journey 5 to 6 times. And I found this out too, that within their lifetime, they like the amount of distance they go is like 4 or 5 times the circumference of the earth.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's wow.
It's
a lot
impressive.
of flying. On the Audubon website, there's a map showing the predicted range area that's lost or gained for the bobolink, depending on different climate change scenarios. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what that map shows?
Yes. Yep. So bobolinks are incredibly vulnerable, unfortunately, to the potential impacts of climate change, mostly due to like the potential habitat changes that you're talking about, that climate change can bring. So, for example, like the map that you're alluding to shows an 88% range loss in the scenario. And this is like specifically for the Midwest and their breeding area. In the scenario that we're seeing like a 3-degree average increase by the end of this century.
3 degrees
Now that's like
temperature.
Yes, 3 degrees of temperature, which is a pretty extreme change, right? And so as the temperature changes here in the Midwest, scientists are predicting that we'll have, longer growing seasons, which is great for farming, right? But then we're also going to be experiencing higher temperatures throughout the entire year. And then so when you're faced with potentially loss of additional habitat because we're farming more because of the better or longer growing season, we're seeing a decrease in habitat quality and then habitat loss as well. And already, bobolinks are facing a ton of habitat loss. So there's still, despite everything that we know about the benefits of grasslands and the ecosystem services that they bring, we're losing like over 1 million acres a year in grasslands, just here in like the Midwest area and the Northern Great Plains. And so combining the fact that we still see an acceleration of habitat loss and all those other changes that climate change can bring, yeah, there's definitely a big challenge for them in the future.
What are the bobolinks? How are they benefiting the local ecosystem, and what are we going to see as that bobolink population potentially declines as climate change continues?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They're great biocontrol agents for different agricultural pests. So, because they eat so many insects just as themselves as they're getting ready to breed, and then as they're feeding their very, very hungry offspring as well. And then I would just say, like, correlating their presence with the presence of intact grasslands as well. Like, if we're seeing bobolinks go away, that's an indication that their habitat, of course, is also being lost, or it's being degraded enough or fragmented enough where they are saying, see you later, or like, and then with grasslands, there's so many key ecological services that grasslands are providing to us as people, and like, of course, wildlife in general too, but it's preserving our soil health. It's providing really key water infiltration services, um, flood resiliency, all these really important aspects and services that we often don't acknowledge.
You and the Audubon Society have initiatives, though, to help the bobolinks.
Yes.
Tell us more about those initiatives and any successes that you've had.
Absolutely. Yes. Happy to talk about that. So we're really prioritizing working with private landowners, public land managers as well, in conserving especially grasslands across North America. And so we do this through a variety of different programs. And then we also have our kind of big flagship project or program of our working lands initiative called the Conservation Ranching Program, and this is something that I work really intimately with. And so we are working hand in hand with livestock producers and bison producers who are really the original land stewards of our grasslands, and finding some common ground, learning from each other about how we can be saving grasslands, saving the birds, but then also like meeting their bottom line, right? Like, this is their livelihood. And so it's very critical that we are finding that balance. And there's, I've learned a ton from producers. What I have really appreciated about Audubon and our work is that we kind of come into these conversations being like, okay, well, we know about birds, but like, tell us about your land, and like, what are you seeing with these like regenerative practices that you are practicing or that you are implementing? And that has really informed how we've taken the program. So over the last 10 years, it's grown. It used to just be like 1 or 2 farms in Missouri, a couple in the Dakotas. Today we have over 150 ranches, covering about 4.5 million acres across the entire conservation ranching network, mostly west of the Mississippi River. We're now getting, here in Minnesota, we have it, initiating it in Iowa, and then in Wisconsin as well.
What are some of the solutions that you've found that meets the needs of our grasslands and the bobolinks, as well as meets the needs of our producers?
Yes, great question. So a lot of it stems from rotationally grazing. Okay, so instead of just putting the cattle out into a large field where they can be continuously grazing through a whole season, um, producers are creating smaller pastures and then moving the cattle through them sometimes daily, depending on like their management goals. And this is to essentially mimic how the bison roamed on these grasslands, because that is the type of pressure and grazing style that these grasslands evolved under. And so that is for the birds, since we're talking about birds, what's benefiting them there is like the difference in structure across just say one ranch. You're getting like a whole different matrix of structural height that is supporting a wider diversity of bird species, as opposed to if you just had, 100 acres of fully like a yard, like turf grass out there,
Yeah,
grazed
yeah.
down so low that maybe one bird species, like I think horned lark, really love just kind of that very short grass. But if you break that up, then like a part of the season, yeah, you will still have that short grass, but then the rest of the fields that are being rested are growing taller, or maybe they're at medium height because they got grazed last week. So you're creating that structure that bison would have done naturally. And that's all like, then you're at the same time improving forage quality for the cattle. You're spreading out the manure, right? It's not just congregated. And so that's great for the soil. And then you're kind of spreading out the like hoof action as well. And so that's another like great soil health benefit of that type of system too. And then oftentimes producers do see that working more with nature allows for like oftentimes they're seeing their cattle as improving health wise.
If anybody listening has private land that they're ranching on and they want to participate in this initiative, how could they do so?
Yes, absolutely. We have a website, so you could go to audubon.org/ranching to learn more about the Audubon Conservation Ranching Program. And yeah, wherever you are, we have range ecologists in all of Western United States. And so we can link you up with your local technical assistance person through Audubon. But even if you have just a small pasture or an overgrown field, that can also be supporting a bobolink. As their native grasslands kind of dwindle, they are moving to more of those types of habitats. And so if you have something like that, and I think just like generally as well, best practices would be to like pesticide use, so decreasing that or eliminating that as best as you can. They get, they ingest those bugs that are, impacted by that, and so they're getting those chemicals in that way, and then indirectly as well, just from the insect loss too from the
Sure.
pesticides. So you're decreasing their food sources. If you do have pasture land or grasslands, look into rotationally grazing, just being aware of your haying windows. So avoiding the nesting and brooding season, essentially. So pushing haying until a little bit later. I think we usually say like July 15th or later.
Thank you so much for joining us today and for your work on helping make sure that we have our bobolinks around and that our grasslands are good for them and for us and everyone.
Thank you so much for your time and inviting me on. It's been really fun.
For more information about our wild backyard or to access previous episodes, visit www.ourwildbackyard.org. Until next time, take care and enjoy nature in your neighborhood.